While America decides if it has enough toilet paper to keep their little bums clean, the rest of the world is entering the next phase of SHTF. Okay, this is not any one single thing. This is economic, which is our jobs. This is banking, which is financing. This is investment world, which is pensions and retirement, excess funds. This is, of course, medical. Thank you, Cerveza-bug. And over in Europe, they're dealing with something that is a little bit different than what we have, but we could end up with something like it. In Europe, they have an immigration issue, something that's been being fought here in America with great vigor, this idea of open borders and allowing anyone who wants to come here and then live off of the work and labor and wealth of others. Well, they still have that problem in Europe, believe it or not, with everything that's going on. France is shut down. Spain is shut down. Italy has been shut down. Austria messed up. Germany, England, all of Europe, Eastern Europe. Guess what? Greece is having to erect a massive set of concrete blocks on the border to halt the migrant wave from Turkey. Can you believe it? Europe is infested with Cerveza-bug. I'm sure Turkey is too. Right? But what are people still trying to do? They're still trying to leave that area and get into Europe now. Right? This is interesting. Right? There's video, there's picture. Check out the link down below if you want to take a look at some of it. Some of it's sad. I mean, in fact, all of it is sad. The fact that this is happening, that human beings can't behave, that people are fleeing one area of the world because their governments are so corrupt that they want to go to another area. And they believe and hate people with wealth so much that they want to go into their area, take their wealth, and destroy their cultures and replace it with their own, like a frickin' cuckoo bird. Right? That's what these Middle Easterners are doing. That's what they want to do. Long gone are the days of, I would like to migrate to your country because your country is great and I want to be like that. Now the belief is your country has wealth, mine doesn't. I want to move there, take your wealth, and destroy your culture. That is the attitude. And frankly, that is the attitude we have here in the United States with regard to immigration as well. People want to come here to get the wealth, not to join our culture and our belief system. Combine that with shit hitting the fan and you have a recipe for disaster. As far as I'm concerned, Europe is suffering a civilian invasion. Not a military invasion, a civilian invasion. Right? It is absolutely stunning to me. Right? Turkish media and officials have played up the violent response by Greek security while downplaying and ignoring Turkey's leaders actively facilitating the confrontations. That's right. Turkey, and I feel bad for Turkey because they have all of these immigrants from other countries coming through Turkey that were promised entry into Europe through their open borders policy. Europe has been saying no more, and now Turkey is stuck with it. Well, Turkey's like, we don't want them, but it's not just immigrants from out of Turkey. So here we have the supposed dominant Syrian identity of the migrants has been widely questioned. Given video from clashes often shows asylum seekers speaking all kinds of regional languages from Pashtun to Urdu to Farsi and non-Syrian Arabic, a Levantine dialect. Now, I couldn't tell you one of those dialects from the other. I could just tell you none of them are speaking Greek, Italian, French, Spanish, German, or English. Right? In other words, there is nothing but trouble going to come from this. Are these people coming across the border? Right? Normally we have health issues. Normally this is a big consideration. Health issues, right? Tuberculosis, traditional influenza, dysentery, typhoid, colitis, I wish I was a diseaseologist and I could really scare the shit out of you. These people coming across, they aren't vaccinated for the actual things that they should be vaccinated for. Never mind the thousands of ridiculous vaccinations we're forced with. Right? They don't have any. Now, again, if I'm vaccinated for something and they're not, then I shouldn't have to worry. But they're bringing in other diseases. Dysentery is a big one. They're unclean. And I'm sorry that political, economic conditions from where they're coming from are so bad that they feel they need to flee. But also they're looking at Europe as a cash win, right? It's the free trip to wealth. Free trip to wealth. And I'm going to have a sip of my chaga mushroom brew. It has an earthy smell, but it doesn't taste like anything. Anyways, what it's supposed to do is keep you from getting cerveza bug. Some things keep you from getting it. Some things help you get over it. I don't know what's working. I just know I don't have it. So I'll continue to drink earthy smelling water along with the rest of my medicinal prophylactic agents. What we have in developing in Europe, it's not any one problem, you see. We're really being faced with something in Europe, and it's going to affect us. You see, this isn't something that's happening only to Europe, and we can go, it's cool, John, that's Europe, screw them, right? They're gonna sleep in the bed that they made. Well, you're combining economic hardships, financial hardships, all these hardships plus cerveza bug. And then you're going to bring more people in. We've had a total shutdown of our economy. And by our economy, I mean the world economy. China shut down, which affects Europe, which affects the U.S., which the U.S. shutdown is going to affect Europe because we export to Europe. Europe exports to us. They can't get their parts. We can't get their parts because a lot of stuff is made in China. Hardships. I've covered the coming potential food crisis. That is, if we don't have fuel, parts, seeds, fertilizers, other chemicals, other necessities for our agricultural system in the United States, in Europe, in and around the world, we're going to have food production issues. Flooding all of these people into Europe is not going to help. Now, a lot of us, we think about Europe, you think of that funny accordion music, right? Sitting in a cafe, sipping a cappuccino, right? Got your scarf on, your little French beret. You're just relaxing and chilling, and there's just a few people around. No, Europe is packed with people. United States, I think, is roughly twice the size of Europe, and we have a third of its population. In other words, Europe is 6 times more crowded already. These are approximate numbers. If you want to correct me, go ahead, put in the real numbers. I don't give a shit. I'm just going with approximates, though, for the purposes of our conversation. We're twice as big and a third of the population. They have over 1 billion people in Europe. They don't produce food the way we do. How are these people going to be fed that are going to continue to pour in by the millions? Remember, they have 1 billion people, not 1 trillion. They have over 1 billion people, and they're bringing in millions and millions and millions. That's 1%, 2%, 3%, right? This percentage buildup. When you bring in, 1, 2, 3% more people, that taxes a system that's already struggling. So the people in Europe are going to have to do with less. And if there is a food shortage, it's going to be less. Right? You add in the fact that people are sick. Now, unless we get 5 million people dying from cerveza bug, or 10 million or 20 million, right? You're severely taxing their ability to support all of these new people. Once again, I'm very sorry that things are so bad in Syria and Turkey and Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan and Iran and Iran and he ran and she ran. Yeah, I'm making a joke. Right? All of those countries, very difficult. But they came from there, meaning they could make a life there. Instead, they're exporting their problems to Europe. Europe is going to have more hardship. You think that's going to help us in America? You know, we're going to have to, what, send more to them? You know, what can we do to help Europe? How, you know, because we're all interconnected now. Because countries no longer support themselves. Because we've gone to this globalized model. It's really going to exacerbate the problems that have come. Now, again, the major crisis right now is Cerveza bug. That's the crisis everyone's focusing on. But this is a multifaceted SHTF light, which means it could get a lot worse when the consequences of the other sectors come into play, right? If we already know we've got an economic, financial, and retirement. Why is retirement a big deal? What do I care about retirement? I'm only 50. You're only 40. Your kids are only 20. What do they care about retirement? Well, we have an entire generation of people called boomers. They are retired and their funds are disappearing. In fact, there's a sector of the little socialist millennials that want boomers to die, right? They want boomers to burn, right? They want the boomer doom. These are sick people who want stuff from other people that they haven't earned, and they want other people to die and give it to them. We have all kinds of strange mentality out here. But those people are alive, and that's money that they spent their entire lives earning. It wasn't given to them. It wasn't socialist gifts. The more I think about it, the boomers that I know and watched, whether they're doctors or laborers or anywhere in between, they all worked their whole lives. They didn't get a month off every year with pay. They were lucky to get 2 weeks off without pay to go on a family vacation they had to save for. This whole notion that these millennials are growing up with, that everything was easy for boomers, is wrong. And now everybody gets to relearn that lesson the hard way, because it's coming. Now, here in America, back to this concept of immigration and the right to travel freely across and into another country and then consume their wealth, whether it be food or currency or medicine or education or anything else. This concept is going to end. It has to end. That doesn't mean we don't have a threat here in America. If Cerveza bug gets out of hand, we could see a literal invasion from Mexico. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm just saying, think about it. Especially along the southern border. You know, that's where they would pour across and go, well, all these people are dying. In other words, who knows what their government is telling them? Who knows what their non-government organization leaders are telling them? Hey, half of America, there's homes open everywhere. You can just go up and go live in those homes. Everything's free in America. We could get an invasion similar to what Greece is dealing with, except we have a much longer border, right? In other words, we're being inundated. This is a multifaceted, multi-front, right? There's a multi-front. Like World War II had an Eastern Front and a Western Front. Right? The Eastern was the Russia-German, the Western was the German, English, French. So we could have two fronts running on this, right? Well, we've got fronts everywhere. We've got a medical front, we've got a financial front, a monetary front. We could have an invasion ourselves because of this belief that everything is better once they get here. That, oh, it's so bad where they're at that they need to come here. Well, you know, you can argue about intelligence and what are they thinking and what are they being promised. But when the rubber meets the road, we've got the same potential problems that Europe has, and that we've got people coming from other areas that are destitute. And they're bringing with them diseases. They're bringing with them a mentality of, I'll take now and worry about it later. It's not an ideal situation. I have called it shit it's the fan light, and I continue to do so. But the difference between shit it's the fan light and Mad Max. Right? Not Captain Caveman, where we're pushing around stone wheels, and not that bad, but, Captain and Mad Max. It's because we're not shooting each other. Not yet. People aren't going mad. There's not dead people everywhere. The government's not just bombing cities into submission in order to get them to behave. That's the bad stuff. We don't want that at all. But that doesn't mean that shit hits the fan light can't be incredibly difficult and worse, far worse than anyone can still imagine. Remember, you and I have been talking about prepping for years. You and I have talked about the consequences of shit hitting the fan for years. We haven't even seen everything yet. We haven't even gotten started in this. All they've done, all the America's managed to do is be scared, realize they're going to have to take days off, go to the store and buy all the toilet paper they can to make sure their sphincter is shiny and new looking. Buy some water, some food, clean the shelf. That's all that's happened. We haven't got to the shooting yet. We haven't got to the lawlessness yet. We haven't got to the corrupt abuse of power yet. But the potential for it is coming, and the potential for immigrants to make it even worse on the southern border. If you're on the southern border, I guarantee you're thinking about it. There's another thing that can happen here, and it's going to be mass migration from within the country. And I know they've got a lid on it pretty much by saying, hey, right, look at the rest of the world. We're going to quarantine. You're not going to be allowed to travel. There's a video that came out earlier that showed a man in Israel being arrested by men in full spacesuits, right, because he violated quarantine, came out of his house, and they arrested his ass. We're going to, in my opinion, we're going to have full quarantine here. Is it voluntary? Will it be enforced? Is there jail time if you get caught, or do they just, handcuff you to a tree in your yard? I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is they're going to try and stop travel. That's one of the things they need to do, is control people's movement and behavior as well as their thinking. There's not enough law enforcement to maintain control of everybody. We've established that. I think the government understands it, right? There's only, a dozen cops for every 10,000 people? 10,000 people, 10 cops. 0.1%. That's not very much, right? They can't control you. They bring in the military, okay, now you've got 0.2%. The fact that half of them are going to quit, back to 0.1%. The fact that the others are going to say, I ain't doing this, you're losing the ability to control. So if they keep us all locked down. But remember, people who are lawless don't care. Immigrants, like they're dealing with in Europe, they don't care. They don't understand. They're afraid, and they want. And this is where this leads, right? We could have down on the Mexican border the same thing or something similar. It's funny, right now they're saying, hey, America, you stay out of Mexico. We don't want you to come down here. Absolutely hilarious. If and I've heard plenty of reports both ways. Hey, cerveza bug doesn't like heat. And I've heard, hey, cerveza bug doesn't care about heat. It's still down there. If it's in Mexico, do you think the Mexican government, if it has the money and the test kits, has the desire and will to test its people? No. Even our country is woefully incapable of testing properly. You think Mexico has done the work? If it's down there, one, they won't test for it, so they don't know about it, so they can't report on it. Right? And the newspapers and media down there, you think they're going to get it out? They're more screwed up than we are. It's Mexico, right? To try and believe that Mexico has their shit together and they want to lock Americans out. It's unbelievable, but I'm glad they have that attitude now, because I bet there's a lot of people, their escape plan, their shit it's the fan plan may have been flee to Mexico. Grab all your shit and bug out to Mexico. I don't know anybody that has that plan, but I'm sure there are lots of people who have that plan, right? This idea of human movement, human migration has always been a problem in war. the civilian population always is made to suffer the most while armies fight. And so people flee, right? The armies are going that way and the people are going the other way. And they always tax or make things more difficult as they go into the areas they've been into. Now let's combine that with the concept of the Great Depression in America, where men had no jobs and they migrated from town to town to town looking for jobs. And people put up signs, cities put up signs, just keep walking, we've got nothing here for you, we barely have enough for ourselves, or we don't even have enough for ourselves, so keep going. Right? That's sadly, right? That's the condition of an economic emergency, the Great Depression. We've got a medical emergency, we've got an economic emergency that's going to manifest itself, we've got a migration emergency, we have a cultural emergency. And by cultural emergency, I mean this concept that is filled with every special interest group known to man right now. And they're all competing with each other for primacy. Right? You've got the LGBTQIQZQP people. You've got the Brown coalition, that anything brown, right, has to be given exclusive merit and love, just because of the nature of the amount of melatonin they have, or that they could claim that they've got some race in them. It's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with reality. But this cultural disintegration is a shit it's the fan scenario. It really is. It has its component. Do you think that once we're done with Cerveza bug, once we're done with it and they push it off to the side, whether it burns itself out, we go through the waves and we're done with it, they come up with a vaccine or just a cure or a medication that just makes it null and void, okay, poof, it's out of here. We still have SHTF. It still has economic components to it that are astoundingly bad. Like if we lose 10% of the population, we've lost 10% of the population. That is bad. If we were to lose 10%. We by the time we're done with this stock market crash, we will have had 50, 60, 70% of the wealth of the people in their pensions and their retirements. That will have been not disappeared. It gets transferred. I mean, someone else sold something at a high price and they collapsed it. A stock market crash is not a destruction of wealth. It's a transfer of wealth. An economic crash, that is production, mining, agriculture, wealth generation, that is lost. In other words, it stops. The work is not being done. It's different than what happens to that wealth that already exists, that gets transferred to rich people, to bankers, etc. And then they pretend like, oh, we're so sorry, everyone's all messed up. Oh, I lost stuff too. No. Even the smallest investors who are savvy realize it's a wealth transfer moment. And trust me, little guys that probably are your neighbors are sitting on their computers every night trying to figure out how they can get their share of this wealth transfer. So we've got wealth transfer, we've got loss of economic production and capacity. There's not going to be time for these other special interest groups, their claims of racism and privilege and yada, yada, yada. It's done, right? There's not going to be time for all of that. And there's people that are heavily invested in that stuff. I mean heavily invested. You see how they behave on camera now, crying like babies on the street and screaming and yelling, pawing at people. Then you have the social activists on the political side, like Antifa. They want violence. They want communism and Bernie's out. They're going to be mad. We've got all of these other elements. And then you pile onto that this desire for more immigration. And to even discuss it, you'll get someone like AOC calling you a racist. I'm not a racist, right? It's not about race. It's about protecting national borders, preserving our American culture. It's not racism. It's about preserving ourselves, right? It's about preserving the economy, preserving what resources we have to try and maintain some semblance of a standard of living. That's after we get done with Cerveza bug, by the way, right? In other words, this is a full-blown, full-tilt boogie SHTF with good behavior. That's the light part of it. Okay, that's the light part of it. How can they maintain good behavior through all of this? Shutting that border down that Trump has done and fighting as hard as he has done. I know a lot of people don't like Trump. Well, definitely on the left side. Fuck those people. Even people on the right, they're like, what has Trump really done? And I understand that. But I got to tell you, right now, if our national policy was open border, if our national policy was no wall, if our national policy was let him in and let him steal and screw around and get away with breaking laws, because that's what they do. They come up here, they don't give a fuck about our laws. They're already illegals and they don't belong here and they know it. And so they get arrested and then they scream racism and orange man bad and everything else. And then they get deported back to Mexico and they get mad about that. You think they would be any different if the policy was let them in? It would be worse. There would be more crime, more trafficking, more drugs, more murder, more corruption. They're being stopped. So at the very least, Trump has stopped that for this shit hits the fan, because I've known for years that shit was going to hit the fan, that these problems were going to come. And by keeping that border as tight as it is, even though it still leaks like a sieve, it's not a full-blown busted pipe with people just pouring up here, helping themselves to our country. That's what Europe is trying to stop. We'll go all the way back to Greece. There's kind of a bottleneck in Greece. There's a bottleneck on Europe. There's just a few areas for them to get in, unlike our big, long border that runs from California, across all of Arizona, across all of New Mexico, and that big-ass, long Texas border. Right? They want to get across. They've got a lot more options than they have in Europe. So in Europe, they've got this bottleneck. Now, in Europe, why don't they go up into, Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, and try sneaking through in those places? Well, it's because they have a complete 100% shut the border. No, you can't come in. We don't want your shit here. So in order to get into Europe, they've got to go through Greece or across the ocean in boats. It's going to produce conflict. It's going to produce disaster. It's going to increase disease exposure. It's going to increase violence. Violence. Shit hitting the fan, violence, on top of all the other problems that Greece has. Remember, Greece was that country where they were taking bankers, regular bankers, not the powerful bankers, just regular bankers, and beating the shit out of them years ago. Right? Their government said austerity because in order to get more loans, not more freedom or more independence or sovereignty, they were said, if you want more loans from the European Central Bank, you've got to do austerity, which is higher taxes and lower entitlements, which is probably a good idea on the entitlement side, but they want to get paid back, right, by the Greeks. So they encourage them to have this ridiculous system, and then they punish them for having this system. In Europe, they were encouraged to have lots of immigration, and now they're being punished for having all that immigration. Shit has hit the fan. Their policies, whether it's economic, whether it has policies about migration, policies about retirement, policies about social standards, policies having to do with everything. They're all bad policies, and now the consequences are what's happening. Eventually, chickens come home to roost. Eventually, you have to pay the piper. Eventually, right, there are consequences. In America, we've got the same sorts of consequences. A little different flavor, right? Kind of like, well, normally I'll have a coffee or a tea or something, and now I get chaga mushroom. This is the consequence, right, of their decisions that I'm feeling at this moment. Not to mention, there's 8 inches of new snow outside. I can't go to this ski resort. I can't go snowboarding because they're not open. Because everyone has cerveza bug. Everyone's a potential cerveza bug person, right? If I were to slide off the road in my pickup, no one would help me because I might have cerveza bug. If I see someone slid off the road, am I going to pull them out? Well, what if they have cerveza bug, right? In other words, they put enmity between people, and they've come up with a cute name for it. It's called social distancing. Oh, I thought we were all supposed to love each other. There's going to be even greater social distancing between the various social groups, right? They're mad that people are looking at Chinese folks and going, you hate them because they're Chinese. No, it's not hate. It's concern. It's legitimate concern. It's fear. It has nothing to do with their race, right? But they put this enmity between people, and now they've exacerbated it with cerveza bug. And then to call you a racist or a homophobe or a xenophobe on top of everything else, that is all going to go away, by the way. Or at least people aren't going to give a shit. I don't obey it, and I never have. This PC political correct bullshit it's played itself out. All it's done is exacerbated shit hitting the fan. There's no place for it in a real world. There's no place for it in the real world. Certainly not in shit it's the fan world. And once again, we have just started. We have just started. We haven't gotten into this fully in America. It's just started. We've got months and months and months of this to go. Buckle up, right? Head on a swivel. You're going to need to stay frosty on this. And you're going to need to look ahead. People think it's bad now, or it's crazy now, or it's weird now. We haven't even begun to see the consequences of the bad policies and decisions of state lawmakers and national lawmakers and the greed and corruption within the banking and investment systems, as well as corporations. Amazon is going to stop. I was thinking that they would continue to be open somehow and manage to keep getting products out, at least through internet business. Looks like that's going to end. Right? Got reports of that now coming in. It's not just, I just don't want to come out with things I hear through my personal people, but I'm starting to hear it from others as well. Are they rumors? Could be. But this system is not even done shutting down yet. It's got to shut down. We're going to go into dormancy. There's going to be a lot more fear and panic. There's going to be a lot of weird shit happening. You need to be ready. Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. Godspeed, everybody. God bless. We're in big, big, big trouble. We need to maintain control of ourselves, and the government needs to maintain control of its, shall we say, responsibilities, not its expansionist control concepts. Okay, folks, I'll talk to you soon.